Though many people recall the Tuskegee syphilis study conducted by the United States Public Health Service, infecting 400 black men with the deadly syphilis bacteria, few people ever heard about the Rockefeller-Institute's Puerto Rican cancer experiment of 1932 that killed at least 13 innocent people by injecting them with cancer viruses. The Tuskegee experiment victims remained untreated as part of their study until 1972, after which many more died of diseases associated with their infections. Yet, even these damaging experiments paled by comparison to the deaths and disease caused by Merck Pharmaceutical Company's recent release of Vioxx. This harmed millions of people worldwide prior to the company pulling it from the market. So America was by no means lagging behind the Nazis, the Japanese, or even the Russians in administering atrocities, as Dr. Kano leads you to believe. Suspiciously, you can't even read the secret document the government presents here to support its claims, but you can read the ones I am about to present. Dr. Kano contends that the Detrick operation was, quote, a modest research and development facility, end quote. In fact, Detrick's own history recalls it being a large, sophisticated biological warfare testing center. The facility employed some 300 scientists, including 240 microbiologists, 40 of whom had PhDs, 250 specialists in other disciplines ranging from plant pathology to mathematical statistics, and between 700 and 1,000 supporting staff. The operations occupied some 1,230 acres of federally owned land, upon which 450 structures were maintained. It produced annually some 900,000 mice, 50,000 guinea pigs, 2,500 rabbits, and 4,000 monkeys. There was also a large corral area for holding larger animals such as horses, cattle, and sheep. The cost of running Detrick's biological weapons research alone was reported at $21.9 million in 1969. And here's another fact. By the falsely alleged end of Fort Detrick's biological weapons program in 1969, there were not simply 7 germs that America had weaponized. Conservatively, there were thousands when you include the bioterrorizing cancer viruses and other germs being cloned, mutated, and mass-produced for global distribution in support of the drug cartel's burgeoning cancer industry. This developing cancer industry really got a shot in the arm back in the 1950s when the first polio vaccines produced in contaminated monkey kidney tissues containing cancer viruses were being tested and injected in millions of people worldwide. The cancer virus was later identified as SV40. It was determined to cause cancer in nearly every species it was injected. After scientists and informed industrialists realized these vaccines were going to produce epidemics of cancer, cartel officials within the National Cancer Institute started a special virus cancer program, the SVCP, in 1962, according to secreted documents. Here is simply a partial list of the deadly viruses they created in labs by 1971. These included leukemia viruses, lymphoma viruses, sarcoma viruses, encephalitis agents, genital herpes, Hodgkin's disease, influenza, infectious mononucleosis, Kuru, that is the mad cow disease prion, breast tumor viruses, and much more.
I have decided that the United States of America will renounce the use of any form of deadly biological weapons that either kill or incapacitate.
President Nixon visited Fort Detrick on the 25th of November, 1969. I remember that date quite well because following his announcement of taking munitions and beating them to plowsheds, we all lost our job. And that was a very traumatic experience. But following his presidential announcement on this date, the entire United States offensive program on biological warfare came to a close within 2 years. We destroyed all of our seed stocks, we destroyed all of our production material at Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and we completely got out of the biological warfare business.
Sure, President Nixon renounced the use of biological weapons in 1969 as a political ploy. In fact, here's what really happened. Tricky Dick, as he was called back then, lied. As you can read here from the prestigious scientific journal Nature, quote, by 1970, a year after Nixon ratified the Geneva Protocol, nothing had changed except the public's perception of chemical biological warfare risks. Rather than receive the promised annual cut in biological warfare research funding, the DoD's biological weapons budget increased from $21.9 million to $23.2 million. The stockpiled biological weapons Nixon pledged would be rapidly destroyed remained intact in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And the announced transition of Fort Detrick from a biological weapons testing facility to a solely defensive NIH-run health research lab had not occurred. So it can be seen that Dr. Kano's propaganda simply reflects her ignorance. Or is it professional negligence? To allege lies are honest truths. Is it unjust or too blunt to conclude Dr. Kano is a professional prostitute for drug cartel-influenced government? Before deciding to condemn me for saying that, or her, listen to the differences between what federal authorities want you to believe versus what leading textbooks on biological warfare has to say about the lacking difference between offensive and defensive biological weaponry. From the point of view of a target population, the notion of an effective defense against such agents is misleading. Neither individuals nor populations can be vaccinated against all possible naturally existing strains and variants of viruses that might be used as weapons. The use of recombinant DNA technologies to alter viruses limits the possibility even against specific strains. In other words, using football metaphorically for what really happened in 1969, many touchdowns in football are made by the defense. Fort Detrick, in fact, scored much more money than it had previously received for offense by shifting programs and players allegedly, that is politically, to defense. Biological weapons defenses featured vaccines for which you needed to produce the offensive weapons, the footballs, before you could run the plays for the military-industrial complex. But this defensive, offensive activity with merely 7 deadly biological weapons at Fort Detrick was a drop in the bucket. There was a revolution in military affairs taking place at this time. Older biological weapons, methods of culturing and cloning them, mutating germs and mass-producing viruses, even recombining bacteria and viral genetics were being advanced with new biotechnology. So the focus on weapons of mass destruction shifted from simple infectious disease producers to the realm of immunological attackers, using cancer viruses manufactured in labs.